Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. It is time to talk about the new lore in patch 7.3 and how it ties into what we've been seeing with Warcraft up until now. This is a very spoilery video, so it's best to drop out now if you want to wait until the patch drops to see this for yourself. And I will be doing a primer video that covers all the lore on the Titans that, you'll want to know before playing the patch. That should be out within the next week, but if you want to get into the spoiler talk, now's the time, so let's get right into it, starting off with the Titans. So Argos brought a complete surprise that really I just did not at all see coming. Most of the Titan Pantheon are indeed raid bosses in the new Argos raid, and the final boss is literally called Argos. Yeah, so this is pretty mental stuff. Most of us just expected to be fighting a bunch of random bosses, maybe Sargeras at the end, which admittedly would have been very strange as far as power levels go. But anyway, there's a hell of a lot to unpack here. So first, the Pantheon have probably not turned evil, which I've seen some people suggest. One of the bosses in the raid is the Coven of Shivara, who are responsible for tormenting their souls. So yeah, the most powerful beings that ordered all the planets are being, well, let's not age restrict this one, but I mean, look at the Shivara. Anyway, so I therefore think that it's likely we'll see a parallel with the Titanic Keepers of Ulduar, where we will basically fight off their corruption. Now, you might think that the power levels are totally out of whack here, and really, you're right to think that. Titans are massive, planet-sized beings. Aman'Thul actually killed Yeshiraj by reaching down through the sky and throwing him, and in doing so, that damaged heavily that part of the planet. Therefore, it doesn't seem like we'll be fighting the actual Titan bodies, which by all accounts are still, they were destroyed with in the battle with Sargeras at Nihilum, or Nihilum, whatever. Now, of course, Norgannon's actions caused their souls to live on, eventually making their way to Azeroth, where they essentially just surged into the Titan Keepers, who didn't really know what to make of it at the time, bar Ra, who understood what had happened. Now, the most up-to-date lore really does conflict with what we hear in this patch. The souls of the rest of the Titan Pantheon supposedly did reach Azeroth, but now in this patch they are somehow in Argos. So perhaps we'll see some story content to bridge that gap, but right now, there don't seem to be any hints yet. Now, these souls have probably been put into bodies that resemble the Titans in their full forms, but with a lot less power. We do see new models for them in the patch files, and there's no way that they are near planet-sized at all. It doesn't make sense that the actual Titans are the size of Titanic Keepers, therefore it's probably some form of constructed body. Now, the final raid boss is called Argos. What does that mean? Well, it could be that Argos contained a world soul of a Titan, and that world soul has been corrupted, thus making it our final boss. We do know that Azeroth itself has a Titan world soul, who currently seems to just be called Azeroth, so there is a parallel between it and Argos that could be explored, and indeed, it could be used to introduce that concept to the player base, further to what we already have seen with Magni Bronzebeard. Now, the creature created through the corruption of a world soul is extremely powerful. We know that the end result of an old god corrupted world corrupting a world soul is essentially a creature that's so powerful that the Pantheon would not be able to stop it. Azeroth is especially important here. She is an unusually powerful world soul, perhaps the most powerful that has ever been seen. So the Pantheon thought that she was so powerful she would be able to deal with Sargeras and handily stop the Void by herself, which is why they really wanted to order the world, and they went to great lengths to do so way back in the day. And it's also why Sargeras has been hell-bent on killing her, because she is, well, powerful enough to stop him, and also, if she is corrupted by the Void, which is what Sargeras is actually scared of, well, it would be a bit of a disaster. A Void-corrupted Azeroth seems to be the worst possible thing, the ultimate, end for our side, so we don't want that happening. So seeing a similar situation with Argos is rather fascinating if it is the case. Argos could either be a Legion or Void-corrupted thing. Maybe the Legion or Sargeras has managed to harness that power himself, but there have been a number of Void models which have been data mined, suggesting that there will be a Void presence in this patch. Now, I've got no idea how players would be powerful enough to destroy Argos if it is a Void-corrupted world soul, unless it turns out that its power has been compromised somehow. The Pantheon, of course, could be on our side, as by the time we get to the final raid boss, we've probably purified them, and perhaps Argos just isn't nearly as powerful as Azeroth. Quite a lot is going to depend on the state of the Titan Pantheon by the end of this patch. If they make it out alive, we actually might see the return of their leader, Aman'Thul. Now, Aman'Thul's soul remnant was absorbed by Rathian when he ate the heart of Lei Shen, who had in turn claimed it from the Keeper Wrath thousands of years ago. which again would be kind of cool to see that interaction. What we know here, though, is that the Titans are finally going to be in game. After years of hinting, even going all the way back to Uldaman in vanilla, and all the stuff we saw there, we're finally actually going to see them. One of the most heavily speculated things is finally happening. Now, the dungeon is actually quite different. Instead, it takes place in the old ruling chambers of Argos, where Velen, Kil'jaeden, and Archimonde actually led the Eridar back in the good old days before the Legion came. Today, however, it's brimming with the Void. Our first boss is a Void Broken, Draenei. The second boss is a Void Ethereal. The third is a fancy Void Ethereal. And the final one is a Void Naru. Now, the datamine model, or there is a datamine model, for a light Naru, suggesting we might indeed purify that Naru at the end of the dungeon. This continues to point towards the Void having some sort of role in the future. And indeed, there's whatever stuff happens with Zera, or I forget her name, the Naru that we talked with in the Order Hall Light's Heart thing. Now, we also need to talk about Alleria and Turalyon. I believe I'm now finally pronouncing that right instead of Turalyon. Anyway, everyone's favorite mysterious power couple has finally returned. After seeing hints of Turalyon in 7.0, we finally get to meet him in this patch. He is the leader of the Army of the Light, who seem to be comprised of Draenei, broken Draenei, and at least some other races like Lothraxion, who is the light-aligned Dreadlord, who joins Paladins in their Order Hall campaign. Now, both characters mention that they've been fighting the Legion for millennia, which further doubles down on the interaction that the Twisting Nether has on time. I don't know if this is just some, vanilla general relativity stuff, or if Blizzard are just playing fast and loose with the Twisting Nether essentially just being a handy plot device for just about everything, including timelines and transportation. Anyway, the Marksmanship Hunters watching, of course, which I've mained one, might remember that while we did recover her bow, Alleria was still missing. Well, she actually reappears here, seemingly not to the surprise of Turalyon, so it seems like this whole imprisonment situation for her that we saw in the Order Hall campaign, or the artifact acquisition, was just a bit of a close call. So essentially, the two of them have been fighting the Legion for thousands of years, even though they only went missing about 24 years ago in Azerothian time, at least from our frame of reference, but again, who knows how time works. Now, Blizzard are able to do whatever they want when it comes to the founding of the Army of the Light there, and they could have it so that it's something Alleria and Turalyon joined, or maybe make it so that it's something that they created. Again, we've got thousands of years compacted into 24 Azerothian years. They could do anything there. Now, there is one extremely interesting thing that I did not see coming. There's actually a Void-corrupted model of Alleria in the game files. Once again, this is pointing to the Void just playing a role in this patch and indeed in the future. It could just be a vision, though. Of course, all that Void stuff is about dark thoughts, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, though, it's very interesting that Sargeras himself is not the final boss of this patch, and that it doesn't look like we will be fighting something with his power level here. Sargeras could actually make it past this expansion and be used as an actual character that we have a longer-term interaction with, rather than him just being the big, bad, angry boogeyman in the sky of this patch who we just go and kill one day. I think that it would be a pity that for him to just fall prey to the sort of typical, villain of the day whack-a-mole by sort of being underwritten and not having enough screen time. Doubly so if they just have him kill a character off like, say, Khadgar to get us invested. I think that would be pretty lazy storytelling. Still, it could be cool that Sargeras would actually be a character. Overall, though, the lore of this patch might actually be one of the things I'm most excited about. They're definitely making really large moves here, and looking back at what they did with Warcraft Chronicle Part 1 and 2, or Volume 1 and 2, it seems like that there was really some purpose in refactoring the lore into something that suits the game. The universe itself, I think, is pretty cool, and it's great seeing big locations like Argos actually be here. 7.2 is a patch that really, I think, for many people who enjoy more than just the core mechanics of the game, it had very little. 7.3, though, seems like it's got a far broader appeal. It's going to have all the fun mechanical gameplay, like a new raid, new dungeon, system updates, all that stuff, but it's going to have a bigger body of content and new, genuinely exciting vistas and things to see and stuff to do that we haven't just had before in the game. So overall, I think it could be a patch with a far, far broader appeal, and then certainly from a lore perspective, well, just from looking at my own comments on videos and other people's, this just seems to have had everyone talking. By putting the Titans in there, they just sort of flipped everything on its head. This is not what we expected from Argus, and because of that, I'm extremely interested to see what direction they go with. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.